April 1943. Across occupied France, contrails drift like chalk lines drawn on a cold blue sky. High above them, Oberleutnant Rolf Herrmann peers through the canopy of his FW-190A5. The sunlight flashes against the glass as he grins and keys his radio. "Look at them, Willie! Flying milk bottles!" 16 unfamiliar American fighters are climbing toward his formation, slowly, clumsily, or so it seems. The New Republic P-47 Thunderbolt heaves upward in a rigid block of silver. To men who have spent years mastering the elegant Messerschmitt 109 or the sleek Spitfire, the American machine looks absurd. Fat fuselage, oversized propeller, stubby wings. Herrmann chuckles, certain the sky has offered up easy prey. What he doesn't know is that the world is about to change. Only a few thousand feet below, Major Donald Blakesley of the 4th Fighter Group scans the same sky. Formerly of the RAF's Eagle squadrons, he already senses that this massive, over-engineered brute will demand an entirely new kind of air combat. The P-47 cannot turn like a Spitfire or climb like a 109, but it can dive, it can hit, and it can take punishment no pilot has yet imagined. That morning marks the first meeting of two philosophies: Germany's faith in agility and precision versus America's faith in horsepower and steel. 3 years earlier, in June 1940, engineers at Republic Aviation in Farmingdale, Long Island, had faced an impossible brief: build a fighter that could outclimb, outfight, and outlast the Luftwaffe. Their chief designer, Alexander Kartveli, looked at the paper requirements and famously muttered, "They want a dinosaur." Then, after a pause, "All right, we'll give them a good-looking dinosaur." What rolled out in 1941 stunned test pilots. The XP-47B weighed nearly 10,000 pounds empty, 2 tons heavier than the aircraft it replaced. Inside its bloated fuselage sat the Pratt & Whitney R2800 Double Wasp, 18 cylinders of radial fury producing 2,000 horsepower. A maze of turbo supercharger ducts ran through the rear fuselage, giving the plane its pregnant look and its secret weapon. Where most engines gasped for oxygen above 25,000 feet, the Double Wasp still breathed easy. At altitude, the P-47 could deliver sea-level power where German engines sputtered thin. But on the ground, the brute was treacherous. Between late 1942 and early 1943, the 56th Fighter Group lost 18 pilots and 41 aircraft in training accidents alone. She rolled on takeoff, dug a wingtip into the dirt, or dove so fast that control surfaces froze under compressibility. Many called her a widowmaker. A few, those who mastered her, called her something else: unstoppable. Lieutenant Robert S. Johnson, a farm kid from Oklahoma, remembered his first takeoff. "It felt like riding a locomotive into the sky. You didn't fly it, you aimed it." Still, in those first combat weeks, German pilots laughed, and with reason. Over France, April 1943. The rookie Americans climb clumsily into the sun. The Luftwaffe pounces. In the first month, the Thunderbolt squadrons lose 14 aircraft for only 3 confirmed German kills. British observers sneer that the best evasive maneuver in a P-47 is to unstrap and run around the cockpit. But numbers tell only half the story. Mechanics notice something strange. The aircraft that return are riddled with holes, 20mm cannon hits, severed control cables, even whole panels missing, yet they make it home. A Spitfire or Messerschmitt hit the same way would be falling debris. The Thunderbolt's giant radio engine shrugs off damage that would doom a liquid-cooled fighter. Its armor plate, its redundant cables, its sheer mass Together they form a fortress with wings. And when those 8 50 caliber Browning guns speak, they speak with authority. 6,000 rounds per minute converge into a storm of metal that can slice an aircraft in half in 2 seconds. No one knows it yet, but the balance of the air war has just shifted. June 26, 1943, somewhere above Lille, France. Second Lieutenant Robert Johnson and the 61st Fighter Squadron are escorting bombers home when 16 FW-190s dive out of the sun. In moments, the sky becomes a slaughterhouse. Johnson's aircraft is ripped apart, canopy shattered, hydraulic lines spraying fluid, nose cowl torn away. Shrapnel cuts his face and leg. The canopy won't open. A cannon shell has welded it shut. He is trapped at 27,000 feet in a burning plane. He pushes the stick forward, expecting the end. But the engine coughs, then steadies. The Thunderbolt still flies. Bleeding, blinded by oil, Johnson aims west for England. Then, as if to test the legend, a lone German fighter slides in behind him. 4 bursts of cannon fire hammer the P-47. Pieces fly off. Smoke trails in ribbons, yet still it will not die. Out of ammunition, the German pilot draws alongside, eyes wide in disbelief. He salutes and banks away. Johnson limps home on one sputtering engine. His ground crew stops counting bullet holes after 200. The story spreads through both air forces like wildfire. The Americans realize what they've built. The Germans realize what they're facing. When the wreck is examined, engineers quietly admit, "We didn't know it was this tough." German intelligence refuses to believe the report until their own pilots confirm it. By midsummer 1943, laughter in the Luftwaffe mess halls fades. July 1943. The men of the 56th Fighter Group finally learn the Thunderbolt's secret. Their commander, Hubert "Hub" Zemke, gathers his pilots and speaks plainly. Don't turn with them. Don't climb with them. Dive, hit, and get out. Use your weight. Use your power. Use those guns. Out of that briefing is born a new doctrine: boom and zoom. From 30,000 feet, the Thunderbolts roll inverted and dive. At 500+ miles per hour, they open fire, 8 guns stitching a curtain of lead through the air. They never linger to dogfight. They climb back into the sun and do it again. German pilots give the tactic a grim nickname: the Wall of Lead. August 17, 1943, Regensburg and Schweinfurt. The deepest American bombing raid yet into the Reich. P-47 squadrons escort the B-17s as far as their limited range allows. Major David Schilling leads 4 Thunderbolts against a formation of twin-engine Bf-110 Zerstörers arming to attack the bombers. The Americans dive from 28,000 feet. A German gunner later recalls, "They came down like hammers from the clouds. I fired and hit one. He didn't even flinch. Then his guns opened, and the aircraft ahead of me simply disintegrated." 8 destroyers are erased in 60 seconds. Each P-47 carries 3,400 rounds of mixed ammunition, armor-piercing incendiary and tracer, nearly 900 pounds of metal. A single 3-second burst delivers 100 impacts on a target the size of a truck. Lieutenant Colonel Francis Gabby Gabreski sums it up. "When all 8 guns hit, you don't see a plane go down, you see it explode." By autumn, the Luftwaffe's best discover the Thunderbolt's other advantage: altitude. October 8, 1943. Ace Hans Philippe, 206 victories to his name, leads his unit against a B-17 stream near Bremen at 28,000 feet. The thin air strangles his BMW 801 engine. Controls feel sluggish. Above him, Thunderbolts dive from 32,000 feet. Robert Johnson spots Philippe's distinctive nose art, squeezes the trigger at 300 yards, and watches the German ace vanish in a fireball. When word reaches Luftwaffe headquarters, disbelief turns to alarm. If even Hans Philippe can't survive, what chance do the rest have? An intelligence report to Goering admits the unthinkable. The American fighter's service ceiling exceeds 42,000 feet. Its dive speed nearly supersonic, and its armor impenetrable to light cannon. January 1944. A new variant, the P-47 D-22, arrives in England with a massive paddle blade propeller that bites the air like an axe. Climb rate jumps by nearly 1,000 feet per minute. Veteran German ace Heinz Knoke encounters them over Hanover and notes in his diary, "The fat Americans have learned to climb. Schmidt tried to break upward. They followed us to 30,000 feet. He was blown apart. These are not the same machines we mocked last year." Even their sound changes. Ground troops hear the low thunder miles away, the Donnerschlag, the thunderclap. By March, the P-47's range has doubled with new drop tanks. Now they can stay with bombers deep into Germany. For Luftwaffe pilots, each escort mission becomes suicide. March 6, 1944, Berlin raid. Major Gunther Rahl, one of Germany's top scorers with 275 kills, leads his unit upward. Above him, P-47s glint like anvils in the sunlight. Someone jokes, "Here come the flying pigs." 30 seconds later, no one laughs. "They came down like an avalanche," Rahl recalled years later. 3 fighters gone before we could react. Their fire wasn't bursts, it was a solid stream. Each impact from the .50s punches through armor plate, igniting fuel, shattering cockpits. When the smoke clears, Rahl's hand is shredded and his squadron is gone. He survives, but the myth of Luftwaffe superiority dies that day. Unlike German fighters running rich to keep up, the Thunderbolt's radio can loiter for hours. It can cruise, climb, fight, and still have fuel to escort bombers home. The Americans now own the high sky. As spring approaches, new machines, the sleeker P-51 Mustang, begin arriving. Yet the Thunderbolt refuses to fade. It is about to reinvent itself once again, this time as a terror on the ground. June 1944 looms. The Allies prepare to storm Fortress Europe, and the big, thunderous fighter, once mocked as a flying milk bottle, will become the hammer of the invasion. June 1944. The night before D-Day, hundreds of P-47s wait on airfields across southern England, engines idling in the dark. Mechanics check bomb racks, pilots study maps under red lights. The Thunderbolt, once a high-altitude escort, is now loaded like a bomber. 1,000-pounders under each wing, rockets slung beneath. At dawn, the order comes. The invasion begins. Over the beaches of Normandy, the air roars with hundreds of engines. The Thunderbolt squadrons create a steel umbrella from sea level to 30,000 feet. German fighters that dare to climb into that storm vanish in seconds. Oberleutnant Wolfgang Fischer, one of only a few Luftwaffe pilots to reach the invasion area, later admits, "The sky belonged to the Americans. Thunderbolts everywhere. You couldn't go over them, couldn't dive under them. Their guns turned our fighters into falling metal." Within hours, the Luftwaffe's defense collapses. Below the clouds, the Thunderbolts turn their fury toward the roads and railways of France. Convoys, fuel depots, troop trains, all become targets. Their 8 heavy guns firing armor-piercing incendiary rounds shred anything soft-skinned. Even tanks are vulnerable from above. A 2-second burst rips through engine decks like tin foil. A German infantry officer in the 125th Panzer Grenadier Regiment recalls, "They came so low you could see the pilot's face. Rockets howled, machine guns roared. A whole column of trucks just disappeared, 20 vehicles burning before we could fire a shot. Troops begin calling them JBOs, fighter bombers, but these are something else entirely. Flying artillery that arrives out of nowhere and leaves nothing standing. By late June, statistics from the 9th Air Force tell a grim story. In that month alone, Thunderbolts destroy over 650 locomotives, 3,800 trucks, 500 armored vehicles, and more than 4,000 horse-drawn wagons. German supply lines disintegrate. Every daylight movement becomes suicide. The Wehrmacht resorts to traveling only at night. Even the feared 88mm flak guns struggled to track the fast-moving attackers. The Thunderbolt can absorb hits, dive away at 400 miles an hour, and be back the next day. German soldiers soon learn to hit the dirt the moment they hear that deep, distant rumble. "You didn't need to see them," one veteran says. "You felt them first, the ground shaking, then that thunder in the air." While Europe burns, Thunderbolts are also rewriting the rules in the Pacific. The 348th Fighter Group, operating from New Guinea, finds that the P-47's massive engine thrives in the humid air. Its ruggedness makes it perfect for the long overwater flights that cripple lighter planes. Colonel Neil Kirby, commanding the group, develops a new tactic, using the Thunderbolt's weight to dive through Japanese formations. On October 11, 1943, he and 3 wingmen face 40 enemy aircraft over Wewak. Kirby shoots down 6 in minutes, earning the Medal of Honor. Japanese ace Saburo Sakai later confesses, "We called them monsters. Our 20mm cannon couldn't bring them down. I put dozens of shells into one and watched it fly away. Their return fire was terrifying." For Japan's light, agile fighters, the P-47 is an indestructible nightmare. As the European campaign drives east, new variants appear. The P-47 D-25 can haul 2,000-pound bombs and 10 5-inch high-velocity aircraft rockets, each equal to a 105mm artillery shell. The aircraft's rugged construction allows it to dive into targets at nearly 500 miles per hour, deliver ordnance, and pull out with minimal damage. German armor columns vanish under the combined storm of rockets and .50 caliber fire. By the time the Allies cross the Rhine, Thunderbolt groups are operating as mobile artillery, called in by ground controllers within minutes of spotting enemy resistance. Even Hitler's last hope, the counterattack at the Battle of the Bulge, meets the Thunderbolt's wrath. January 1st, 1945. The Luftwaffe throws everything it has left into a desperate strike on Allied airfields, Operation Bodenplatte. At Y-34 airfield near Metz, German fighters catch Thunderbolts on the ground, destroying 22 before escaping. A captured Luftwaffe pilot sneers, "What do you think of that?" Major George Bostick points to mechanics already clearing wreckage. "By tomorrow, we'll have 40 new ones. How long will it take you to replace your pilots?" 2 days later, brand new aircraft fill the same airfield. The Americans have factories. Germany has only loss. The Luftwaffe loses 271 aircraft and 213 irreplaceable pilots in one morning. The Americans replace their losses in a week. Production has become a weapon deadlier than any gun. To German soldiers on the ground, the P-47's approach has its own signature, an approaching roar that rolls like thunder over the horizon. "Donnerschlag," they whisper. "Thunderclap." Every time that sound echoes through the valley, men dive for cover. By now, even low-seasoned German pilots have developed a term for the growing sense of dread. Jabo fever, fighter-bomber fever. Some vomit before takeoff. Others tremble uncontrollably when the word Thunderbolt is mentioned over the radio. The laughter that once filled Luftwaffe ready rooms is gone, replaced by silence. But the war isn't over. As jets appear in German skies and the Pacific pushes toward Japan, the P-47 faces new challenges and proves there's still thunder left to speak. Winter 1944-45. The Reich is collapsing, yet new dangers rise. The Messerschmitt Me-262 jet, sleek, blindingly fast, and armed with cannons, appears over Germany. At over 540 miles per hour, it should be untouchable. But the Thunderbolt's pilots learn quickly, catch them when they're slow, takeoff or landing, or dive from above. On November 27, 1944, Lieutenant Colonel John C. Meyer of the 352nd Fighter Group dives from 28,000 feet on a Me-262. His Thunderbolt screams through the thin air at nearly 500 miles per hour. The German jet never sees him. At 400 yards, Meyer fires. The jet disintegrates. Soon, Thunderbolts and Mustangs together hunt the jets around their airfields. Even the age of jets begins with the roar of the P-47's guns. To match the new threat, the U.S. introduces the P-47M, a high-performance variant with water methanol injection, pushing its double WASP engine to 2,800 horsepower. It can climb like a rocket and reach 470 miles per hour at altitude, fast enough to intercept jets and V-1 flying bombs. Major George Bostwick shoots down 2 Messer 262s in March 1945, noting in his report, "They're faster, but they can't take punishment. One burst and they come apart like paper." The Thunderbolt's reign is almost poetic. It begins mocked for being too heavy and ends by hunting aircraft that fly twice its speed. By 1945, the scale of America's industrial power is staggering. Republic Aviation builds over 15,600 Thunderbolts, more than any other U.S. fighter. At peak output, the Farmingdale factory finishes one every hour. The Evansville, Indiana plant produces 500 a month. Each aircraft requires 65,000 individual parts, 8 miles of wiring, and 2,000 pounds of aluminum. The engines alone contain 2,400 precisely machined components. Ammunition plants like Lake City Arsenal in Missouri produce 30 million .50 caliber rounds each month. Fuel tankers cross the Atlantic in convoys, feeding the hungry engines of an air force that never stops flying. Even pilot training becomes a production miracle. By 1944, the U.S. graduates 30,000 new pilots per year, more than Germany manages in the entire war. Each Thunderbolt pilot logs roughly 400 flight hours before combat. By contrast, Luftwaffe recruits by 1945 average less than 100. Lieutenant Eugene Roberts, arriving in England that fall, recalls, "I had 400 hours in my logbook, 75 in the P-47. I'd fired at towed targets, practiced gunnery until it was muscle memory. The German I faced that day maybe had 80 hours total. It wasn't even a fair fight." By spring 1945, the once mighty Luftwaffe exists mostly on paper. Fuel shortages keep squadrons grounded. Many of the new pilots are teenagers with barely a dozen flight hours. Field Sergeant Klaus Brettschneider flies his first and last mission over Leipzig. 4 Thunderbolts came from above. I tried to turn, too late. One burst and the plane just broke apart. I lived, the rest didn't. 12 seconds of combat, 6 German fighters gone. Psychological collapse follows physical defeat. Captured reports describe men suffering seizures when they hear the rumble of Thunderbolts approaching. By war's end, the Thunderbolt's record speaks louder than propaganda. In Europe alone, it destroys 3,752 enemy aircraft in the air and 3,315 on the ground. Add to that 86,000 railway cars, 9,000 locomotives, 6,000 tanks, and tens of thousands of trucks. The 9th Air Force alone fires 135 million rounds of ammunition and launches 60,000 rockets. Its pilots achieve a 4.6 to 1 kill ratio, the best of any Allied fighter bomber. When Germany surrenders, interrogation files show how drastically opinions changed. April 1943. Unmaneuverable, minimal threat. December 1943. Significant threat above 25,000 feet. June 1944. Dominant fighter bomber, devastating firepower. March 1945. Best fighter bomber of the war, direct engagement not survivable. From laughter to terror in less than 2 years. In 1985, decades after the war, surviving German and American pilots meet at a reunion in Phoenix, Arizona. Among them stands Adolf Galland, former head of the Luftwaffe's fighter arm. Asked about the Thunderbolt, he smiles sadly. "We made a terrible mistake in 1943. We saw this heavy fighter and laughed. We said, the Americans don't understand air combat. We were wrong. They built not a European fighter, but an American one, built for power, fire, and survival. In a war of attrition, that is what wins." He pauses. "When I flew a captured P-47 after the war, I understood. The power, it felt like climbing on a thunderstorm. We never had a chance." At the U.S. Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio, one of those Thunderbolts stands restored, armor scarred, paint faded. Beside it lies a strip of gun camera film showing an FW-190 disintegrating under fire. Below the display, a quote from an unnamed German pilot reads, "We laughed when we first saw them, fat, ugly machines that couldn't turn or climb. We stopped laughing when we realized they didn't need to. They just pointed those guns and you ceased to exist." The P-47 remains the heaviest single-engine fighter ever mass-produced. 10,000 pounds of metal, driven by more power than an entire WWII bomber formation, armed with enough fire to level a village. It was the sound of American industry with wings, the rhythm of 8 Brownings beating like a war drum. For German pilots, it became the sound of death itself. From a laughingstock to a legend, from flying milk bottle to the scourge of Europe, the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt ended the war as more than a machine. It became a symbol of a nation that could turn iron, oil, and resolve into the sky's ultimate weapon. When the thunder spoke, there were no jokes left, only silence.